This is Umar for BoxNation in association with Global Next Trade. We are in Riyadh, only a couple of days away from Moses Itauma showing the world once again, but this time on a much bigger platform. Obviously, Dillian's a big name, Francis. So, is this perfect matchmaking from you guys Saturday night?
I think it's a great fight for Moses. In terms of what he gets out of this, I think matchmaking is all about risk reward, and I think there is definitely jeopardy in this fight because of Dillian's pedigree and experience, and the fact that he's been there and done it over so many years. He's been in with the biggest names in the game, fared well against all of them, even in the defeats he's had. But if you look at the potential rewards in getting a win. For Moses, they're huge. Name recognition, respect, rankings, career progression, further confidence in his ability, further confidence from pundits, opponents, the general public. And I think what this does as well, this will cross over into a new demographic of fan base that maybe currently don't know Moses' name. Who will definitely know Dillian because of the fights and the fanfare that he's been involved in the past, having fought Anthony, Tyson, Derek twice, Parker, Povetkin, those sorts of names that Moses can capitalise on and be capitalise on what on beating a name a fighter of Dillian's quality and stature.
What version of Dillian Whyte do you expect on Saturday?
The best, and I'm sure that's what Moses is prepared for. That's what anybody who's anybody in sport always prepares for. It's every fighter you ask for. Yeah, I prepared for 15 rounds. In a 12-round fight, I prepared for 12. They would have prepared for the very best version of the very best Dillian Whyte that there's ever been. You don't. The England rugby team, when they're in a World Cup, they don't prepare any less for Samoa than they do for South Africa. I think it's respect to make sure that you're 100% fully committed and fully prepared, because you don't want to leave any stone unturned. Moses would have been through hard sparring, hard grueling training sessions in anticipation of a hard grueling fight, because that's what you expect top level athletes to bring to the table. And I'm sure that's what Moses and Ben and Lee and Barry in the gym would have prepared for.
What have you made of his attitude sort of this week in all the interviews he's done, where it's almost like, the media's gone against me, the industry's gone against me, so I'm just sort of cannon fodder being used in. Moses is the next Mike Tyson / Muhammad Ali.
It's a smart way of approaching it, because if Dillian had come out and said, I'm going to do X, Y and Z, and Moses goes and bombs him out in a couple of rounds, then Dillian have egg on his face. But I think there's a mutual respect there in the fact that Dillian's at a certain stage of his career and Moses at a certain stage of his. And they really are the opposite ends of their careers. Listen, Dillian knows it's a tall order. Moses knows it's a massive opportunity, but also poses jeopardy and risk. So I think both have got mutual respect for each other. There's not been a crossword. There's further handshakes last night at the before the public workout. Say hello, but obviously they've got one eye on each other when they're not looking. I think. Like I said, you've got to give these athletes that they're finely tuned to what they do for a living, and they're both there to do damage to each other and to maximise their opportunities to get a win, and using up unnecessary energy on slagging each other off and being difficult and awkward is not going to get either of them anywhere, especially if it's not genuine dislike for each other. You can't fake this stuff. Of course, you get fighters that really can't stand each other, and that becomes apparent during fight week especially. But these two guys have mutual respect for each other, and I think Dillian's attitude is, if he really is this good, then we'll find out on Saturday, and if he's not, I'm here to expose it. I think that's Dillian's attitude for me.
What is that jeopardy then? Because look, when we've seen Dillian at his best, it's been quite a while ago. Your Rivas's, Parker's, obviously Buzz Joshua in the fight they had many years ago. I think Moses must have been about 4 years old then. So what jeopardy are you talking about with Dillian?
he's a bad man, isn't he? He's a bad man, and he's been there and done it. And I think if he does see a chink in the armour of Moses early doors, he's experienced enough to be able to capitalise on it. He's got a banging left hook, and he's never going to lie down, Dillian. He's not like he's coming here to make up the numbers. And he's probably, and you think, a big win on this sort of stage sets up further paydays, further opportunities, and further longevity in a career that's been magnificent so far. I'm sure he wants it to continue because this is what he does for a living and financially for as long as possible. So that's the jeopardy. And also, a loss for Moses at this stage, okay, listen, it's never going to be a complete disaster, but it's certainly not ideal, is it? So there's always jeopardy in this sport. There's always jeopardy in boxing in an environment where you can get hurt, where a defeat can set you. It's not like you can go out next week and score a hat-trick and be a hero. This is 12 to 14 weeks worth of work. This is 12 years worth of work for Moses to get to that culminates on Saturday night, because this is his only focus at the moment. So he's obviously got grand plans for the future, but the jeopardy is getting is it going wrong? So and Dillian poses a genuine and real threat.
David A had it, David Price had it, Anthony Joshua had it with Ruiz. Trying to think who else, but yeah, they've all had that point. The Prices, the Hayes, the Joshuas, where they've gone into a fight there where they're overwhelming favourite and they've come unstuck. And that's what Dillian will be looking to do.
Of course he will be. And he'll think that his experience and his ring IQ will see him through. But
Dubois with Joyce as well,
yeah,
another example.
Yeah. And again, you look at Joe in that fight week, he just went for it quietly. He said, we'll see. If Daniel's the real deal, then yeah, I'm in trouble. But he exposed Daniel that night, and he did what he had to do, Joe Joyce, that night to get the win, and that was ring craft, and that was experience. And he just plugged away at him. Listen, Dillian's his own animal, and he will think that in his head that he can, if there is a weakness in experience, if there's a weakness in maybe the fact that Rico's not been here before, Moses hasn't been here before, and he can expose that, then I'm sure he'll think he can find a way of doing that. But my confidence is that Moses is that good and that talented and that determined and will have not left any stone unturned, and that he is capable of executing game plans that we've seen. And yeah, okay, no disrespect to any of the opponents so far, but when you see him in training, you see him warming up in the ring, in the dressing room before he goes in the ring, and he goes and executes exactly that game plan, I have the confidence that he can go in there and do some damage on Saturday night.
If that is the case and he comes through your man, is the winner of Hrgović Adelaide a natural fight to make next for Moses or not?
Depends what's on offer. I think if David goes and beats Adelaide in great fashion, it's a huge, it's a great all domestic dust up at some point. But I think both of those fights probably, because there needs to be, career progression. Excuse me. And Moses is unbeaten, number one in the WBO. I think he will be number one with the WBA. If hopefully when he comes through on Saturday night, the IBF, he's not far off the next mandatory challenger if that belt becomes vacant. So it just depends what everyone brings to the table at this stage, because he's worked hard so far, and we've been very well. We've strategized very well regarding the rankings and getting him to where he is. And any fight that Moses takes post Dillian has got to be for something, for a reason. We've got one eye on, or probably 1.5 eyes on what happens with the belts at the top of the game. So if it's not for a world title in his next couple of fights, it needs to be a career progression fight, not just if he beats, say, it needs to be either learning fights or big fights. And I'm not suggesting David and Philip wouldn't pose a big threat to, a big threat, and wouldn't make a great fight against Moses. But where does it get him by beating either of those guys? And they might think the same thing. Okay,
so if Usyk vacates the WBO, which I think most people think he will.
Listen, if you start putting final eliminators on the line and interim titles on the line, then yeah, then those
my
sort of
question
fights
would be:
make sense.
would he fight Joseph Parker next to the WBO? Would you
Yeah,
do
he
that?
would, yeah.
And would you do that?
Yeah, yeah, because it's a mass. The risk reward is huge. The risk is obviously it's Joseph Parker, all the experience in the world, and but the reward is a world title. World champion by 2021. It's a huge achievement, and it will go down in history.
The last one I've got for you. So after Usyk stopped Dubois at Wembley, within about 20 minutes, His Excellency obviously put out the fight I want to see is Alexander and Usyk and Moses Itauma next. How do you feel about that?
Again, there's nothing in me that says that Moses isn't capable of mixing it with Alexander Usyk. The only thing that Moses hasn't got on his side is experience. Now, if you ask Moses, in a heartbeat, he'd go, yeah, 100%. As his manager, you err on the side of caution. However, if your man tells you he's confident and capable of doing the job, who am I to say no? Especially if he goes on and puts on a fantastic display on Saturday night against Dillian, then I think it's a fight that we'd seriously consider.
Okay, well listen, it all hinges on Saturday night here in Riyadh.
George, that's obviously the primary focus, and I don't want to sit in here talking about Parkers and Usyks before we've taken care of business on Saturday, but I think that was more in relation to if it's the winner of Hrgovic or Adelaide, or if it's Parker or Usyk. I think we're erring to the sides of world titles at the moment.
I got you. Well, listen, it's on DAZN pay-per-view, and I've actually got one to rack your brains now. Have you ever come across or can think of a fighter who's headlined for the first time and it's on pay-per-view? So Moses never headlined before.
Good question. What was Loma's second fight?
Wasn't on pay-per-view.
But I think he headlined in his first fight, didn't he?
He did, and he lost.
And he got beat.
But
yeah, it wouldn't have been pay-per-view. No, I think
Joshua's first fight.
So he didn't quite get Mike Tyson's record, but he's got his record there.
I think Joshua's first fight headlining was just a normal Sky fight. I might be wrong, but it wasn't pay-per-view. So
it's a good one.
I think Moses might be the first one, but someone I'm sure will correct us on that.
Definitely. They usually do on these videos, so, let us know.
Right, I've got to go see your dad upstairs to interview him, by the way.
All right, mate. Top man. Cheers.